तेरा मुझसे है पहले का नाता कोई यूं ही नहीं दिल लुभाता कोई जाने तू या जाने ना. You see, my voice has not really improved since the film.
इंस्पेक्टर ना हो कि नहीं अगली बार तुमने यहाँ गाया.
अगर अगली बार अगर ऐसा गाना गाया कोई ना कोई ज़रूर शूट कर देगा. It is over around 2014, 15, 16 that I really started to have a sense that I was not happy with myself. From my conversations with Ranbir back then, he never bought into that sort of thing either. You know, I found myself thrown into a press room and these guys, इस फिल्म में अनुष्का जी ने 2-piece swing suit पहना है तो इसके बारे में आप क्या कहेंगे? As I was dealing with all of this this baggage and this stuff that was, you know, all of my internal struggle, I did find that my marriage and my relationship were not helping any of that. जानती हो वो इमरान खान की बेटी है. You know, and then try and take pictures of her and all of this. It's really weird, which I thought were
kind of official,
more direct and better. Like you could see our faces. Then last week she posted like this silhouette picture, and everyone said this is the one. I said, but what about the one with where you can see our faces? That didn't count.
Hi, this is Bhavna and you're watching India Today. Well, every time anyone sees this actor, including me, all we want to say is तेरा मुझसे है पहले का नाता कोई. Sorry for my voice, but I think Rats will agree that it's okay as long as the feelings are communicated.
Exactly right.
Of course, we are talking about Imran Khan here. Firstly, a huge welcome to India Today.
Thank you so much.
How are you?
Very well. Thank you for inviting me.
I have been chasing you for this interview for the longest time, so thank you for finally obliging me with this and coming here. I have to tell you, I mean, I'm sorry for my voice back then with the but like I said, Rats
Yeah.
to chalega. I mean,
it doesn't matter whether you are a skilled singer or not. What matters is that you put your heart into it.
Jaane Tu ya Jaane Na is the biggest example.
Yeah.
But you know, around like 2017, you were so much more open to just, I mean, I'm seeing you share DMs of people like the most weird DMs and you're commenting on it. Like, you were so fearless. I wanted to, that made me, I mean, just question the fact that because you spoke about depression as well, we'll just start with this before we get into the lighter stuff. I want to know, when was that point when you actually realized because that, you know, you're going through something? Because I think identifying that you actually need help is the most difficult thing for anyone who's going through it.
Of course.
I want to know, when was that point for you?
It is over around 2014, 15, 16 that I really started to have a sense that I was not happy with myself, that I was feeling unwell.
Right.
And in those initial years, the tendency is you treat it like, you know, it's like some slight back pain. You're like, it's okay, thoda aise stretch karke rehne do. But that, you know, it's like chronic back pain. It just keeps, itna sa hai, phir thoda aur. So over those years is where, and I'm now looking back with hindsight, that is where I really started to perceive it. And it was around 2016 that I actually put my hand on it and said, yeah, I'm not doing all right. I am not feeling strong and capable. And the way I described it when I first went in and spoke to my analyst, and she said, what brings you here? Why are you here?
Absolutely, yeah.
And the way I described it was that I'm not feeling like the guy in my head. We have an image of ourselves. If I ask you, what's Bhavna like? Tell me about Bhavna. You have certain thoughts ke, I am like this.
Yeah.
I have and I had certain ideas. I thought I'm a very chill guy, I'm a very laid back guy. I don't have any stress, I don't take stress. That's how I would have described myself. But as I realized that actually, while I thought I was that guy, I was actually engaging with the world with a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. I was always very, very scared. And that didn't gel with my mental image of myself. In my mind, I will tell you that I'm a fearless guy,
Yeah.
but actually I'm very afraid. So that, and I said, okay, I want to be the version of myself that I see in my head. In my head, I see myself as this guy. I want to make sure that that my reality aligns with that.
Yeah, and that's when you, of course, sought therapy and like this psychoanalysis is what you were talking about.
Psychoanalysis.
Is because 2013 was the year when we last saw you on screen. Then 14, 15, 16, while you were still
I had one
active.
film in 15.
Yeah, but like you were not very active during
Yeah.
that time. But we were like, okay, where is Imran? But it is in 17 that you finally realized. So in these 3 years, what was Imran really doing?
I was trying to do the things. See, when you can't see the whole thing, when you can't see the whole issue, you try to tackle just the small part which you think. You think, acha, it must be this small thing.
Right.
Acha, it must be this. So I was tackling the smaller parts, not seeing the whole picture. Uh, in 2014, in any case, I took that year off because I was about to become a father.
Yeah.
I wanted to be present through the pregnancy, through the birth, through the time that Imara was a newborn.
Yeah.
I wanted to be there for that time. So I consciously did not take on any work in 2014. And in the just after that, I committed to one film which was with Nikhil Advani, Katti Batti. And I certainly didn't know at that moment that that was going to be the last film
Yeah.
for a good while. It was just the first film that I was taking up post becoming a father. I had taken that time off. I said, okay, now I'd like to do something. And I connected with the emotionality within that. Nikhil and I really had a great working equation. So that's when I took on that film. But again, post the release of that, while we were making it and post the release, I was becoming more and more and more aware of the fact that
Not feeling.
I was not feeling right.
Yeah.
And the things that I was trying to do to fix it were not actually taking. And that's where I kind of said, oh, okay, this needs a more significant intervention. This is not just this small thing. It's not कि अच्छा ये film नहीं चली so you are sad. These are externalities that are part of the life of any working actor.
Yeah.
Absolutely any working actor has to learn how to deal with ups and downs, hits and flops. This is the nature of the game.
Yeah.
This is the nature of the industry.
Yeah.
There's nothing unusual about that for me.
You were always aware of that, right, from the beginning, that this is the nature, because I've always seen you not being affected too much by the ups and the downs.
Not at all.
But because I was watching the Coffee with Karan episode of you back then, and such a refreshing episode that was. One of the like few episodes which I really enjoy watching and rewatching. But also that made me realize that back then, I mean, you know, there was this segment there where people would have to choose between Ranbir and Imran, and so many people were just like, oh, Imran, we find Imran hot. So you had that entire period where people were doting on you and were really looking at you as the person, like that, as the heartthrob, as we call it today. So it must have been difficult to sort of let go all of that, because I know, you know, when
Because
you,
I could never take that part in. From the moment that Jaane Tu released, suddenly overnight, I was a known person, and suddenly people recognized me, and there was all of this attention and adulation. But from that moment already, I had a hard time taking that in. The idea of people going, oh my God, you're so great, your film is so great, all of this, that also kind of felt slightly inauthentic to me. So it's not like I bought into that and said, now I'm such a great guy. Oh, my film has not worked, now I'm such a loser. None of these
Never.
things, I looked at it in a very balanced way. Because, see, when I finished shooting Jaane Tu, I signed Kidnap, I finished shooting Kidnap, I signed my third film, Luck, and I was halfway into filming Luck when Jaane Tu released. So by this point, I had been a working actor for about 2.5, 3 years.
absolutely, yes.
Without getting that adulation and recognition and all of this. It was a job. You wake up and you go and you do the work. And so, achanak se one day, yesterday my film had not released, today my film has released. Yesterday nobody cared who I was, today everyone thinks I'm so great. I'm still the same guy.
Yeah.
So I have always held on to that. I am who I am. The way the world perceives me will go up and down and up and down,
Yeah.
and that will always change. But that's not who you are really.
Yeah.
Just because they see you as that, you're not that.
But did it never bother you because media was constantly pitting you and Ranbir sort of because both of you kind of debuted at around the same time and both of you were like really looked upon as the figure at that point. I remember. So did it never bother you that constant comparison or the entire competitiveness that still remains in the industry?
Yeah, and I never bought into that part of it. It's unfortunate, and it will always leave a very unpleasant aftertaste, because that's never how I viewed it. And from my conversations with Ranbir back then, he never bought into that sort of thing either. My recollection of him is that he was also he took the craft very seriously.
Yeah. Still does.
He's a cinephile, and he was not he was also not engaging in that thing. This is the spicy stuff that they like to talk about in the gossip magazines.
Yeah.
So it leaves an unpleasant aftertaste. But if neither of us are buying into it, then it doesn't come into to that part. And I recall here and there a couple of particularly ugly things would come out, and we would always make it a point to kind of reach out and say, hey, listen, aisa hua hai, are we cool?
Yeah, and that's such a nice thing because I know it could really get to people because I remember Zeenat Aman recently because she's also very active now, right? And she shared some really like preposterous headlines back then in the magazines, which really today she recalls that it really affected her confidence back then. Because you're human beings and you tend to get affected by what you read, and especially if it's about you, definitely. So that's why I wanted to ask, was there never periods where you felt a little like maybe they need to calm down?
Frequently, yeah. Which is why, as I say, I was far more guarded back then because you're interacting with media who have a very, very narrow worldview and a very reductive worldview. It's always give us something tasty. It's always kind of a chase to the spicy thing. I was promoting a film with Anushka. We did this film Matru Ki Bijli Ka Mandola, which was kind of we saw it as a more issue-based film, a kind of a bit more of a serious film. I found myself thrown into a press room and these guys, इस फिल्म में अनुष्का जी ने 2-piece swimming suit पहना है तो इसके बारे में आप क्या कहेंगे? It's horribly uncomfortable. Like, मैं क्या कहूँ?
Yeah, and I mean, yeah.
So when you're in these sorts of rooms, आपके मामू ने फिल्म देखी है? मामू का क्या कहना है? It's like, can we get a mention of another famous person?
Yeah. I'm sorry you had to go through all that questions because, from the media fraternity because I'm also part of it. So, yeah.
But the media landscape has changed today.
Yeah.
I think that people are approaching it with a far more, with far greater sensitivity and kind of a measure of self-regulation now.
Absolutely.
At that point, that was the race to it. My sense of humor leans to very, 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 very dry.
I know, that's why I started with that.
Which just would not land with half of these guys. You try to tell a deadpan joke, it doesn't land.
And you also have that thing where you're saying it with a straight face. It's not like you are,
Dry deadpan humor would not land.
Yeah.
They would take it as serious. They're like, oh, this guy is saying this thing seriously. And then they would report on it as such. So it's like, oh man, like I can't even tell you can't be sarcastic here. Nobody gets sarcasm or irony.
Yeah. But I think with social media that has changed.
That changed.
But then why did you decide to completely let go of Instagram, especially? Of course, because you were sort of taking care of yourself at that point, and that is the most important thing. But was it like a conscious choice to not read anything about you? Because good or bad, the general perception is that out of sight, out of mind. So it meant that many people would perhaps not even write about you at that point.
That's what I wanted.
But was it a conscious choice to not read anything at all about the industry?
Well, more than about the industry, it was about removing myself from that world. Uh, Social media, while I had fun on Twitter in those initial years, very quickly I started to feel the sense. And today we have a better understanding of it. And today we look at it and we say, oh, social media actually directly influences our feeling. It increases depression, anxiety, stress, all of this. It spikes cortisol, all of this stuff we are now aware of. At some kind of a subconscious gut level, I was already perceiving that, which is why I went off Twitter. Which is why I was not. I was not an early adopter of Instagram.
Yeah.
I started an Instagram account under pressure from my managers and my public relations and all of these guys. They were the guys who were like, if you are not posting, then you are not relevant. And so I followed that advice reluctantly and kind of dragging my feet and very much against my will. And very quickly I arrived at a place of saying, listen, I don't care enough to do this. The amount of effort involved in finding a good picture and then this and then post and caption, I was like, I don't have the time in the day to sit and do this thing. Because the amount of time and energy that I'll put into that, I'll get some likes and some comments.
Yeah.
You keep them.
I don't want it.
Nahi chahiye.
But also, I mean, it's a great place to sometimes seek some validation, because as human beings, we do need that at times. I think that is what happened with you recently, where I loved the entire trend which started Lot Ao Imran, because it was just like the same social media which perhaps at one point pushed you towards giving it up in ways, is the very reason you are also sort of compelled to come back.
Yeah, I guess it. So for years I was not on. I didn't have the app. I still don't have the app on my phone. I don't consume Instagram. I don't follow. I don't scroll and look at stuff. And even through all those years, I didn't even have the app on my phone, so it didn't exist. And people would send me stuff. Friends of mine would send me, hey, look, here's this hashtag, here's this post about you. And eventually it started to kind of become loud enough. It's like if you're sitting in your house with the door closed and people are starting to gather outside and saying, Imran, kahan ho? And then knocking on the door. At some point you feel like it's very rude. Then you have to open the door.
Yeah.
So I started to feel like I was being rude. So I said, okay, this many people are knocking on my door. I should open the door and say hi.
Yeah.
Hi guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming to my house. Thanks for looking for me.
Yeah. But you did mention in one of the posts that there was a point where, because anything that goes on here affects your body and it shows on your body, and there was a point where your health was also reacting, right? And people were commenting on it, but you were not on social media. I'm guessing that people around you have sent you some images. Like, how do you
It was also in the newspapers.
Okay.
Even if you're not on social media, there's still legacy media. I would get newspapers at the house, and you'd open it up, and I would open it up, and my mom, my aunts, that generation who still get the newspaper at home.
Right.
They would see this and they would be disturbed by it.
Yeah.
You say, "Arey, see what they're saying about you. See what is over here. They posted this photo where you look like this. They're saying you're taking drugs. Kya ho raha hai?" It is disturbing, and it's complicated then to have that conversation with your parents, with your family, and say, look, I can't manage what those people say, what they do.
Yeah.
People say these things without consideration, without a thought of how does it land, where does it.
Yeah. Did you ever at that point consider just giving out one statement to the media, because that a lot of people choose to do that as well, just to shut all the rumors up, because I don't remember you sending out any statement. How did you internalize that, because you were also going through a difficult period, trying to understand yourself and getting better? And there are so many hurdles, and one could be this, which 2 step forward, 10 step backward. It's like a process, right? How do you deal with that?
What I came to was saying that just because those people say it is not real. Suppose they were saying this and this conversation is happening in another country. For example, in our Indian media, we report on Hollywood celebrities. So, in one of our Indian publications, if somebody writes something negative about some Hollywood person, they'll never hear about it.
Yeah.
They'll never read about it. It's written by someone who has never met them. It will be read by people who will never meet them.
Yeah.
So, in that group of people who will never meet kuch nahi, they're sitting over there and they are talking, they have one false opinion. Rehne do.
Yeah.
They're not real.
True.
Who are they?
True.
So that's how I engaged with it. I said, look, you guys are saying something about me. You don't know the truth. You're saying it to people who also don't know. And I don't care enough to come and to correct you or to talk to you. I don't know who any of you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care.
So, in another post, you mentioned insecurities as well, and I was really curious to know what insecurity did you face, because you come across as someone who's very secure in his own skin, but the industry can really make you insecure, right? Like, just like I mentioned earlier as well, just the competitive nature of it. While you could be secure, 10,000 people around you
Those
are
are the
feeding
voices.
things.
Yeah. So that is the voices that start to build around you. And my approach was always from the idea, from the place of you focus on the craft, you focus on doing the best job that you can. Now, see, there is a part of a creative person which comes from self-doubt and a desire to do better.
Right.
And that is a healthy self-doubt. That is a healthy anxiety that keeps you honest. But I was finding myself more and more caught up, and more my ears were filled with the stuff that actually is not relevant. It is box office. How much did your film earn? How big is your paycheck? How many endorsements? How much are you getting paid for your endorsement? There was this whole stuff about body image. I'm naturally a very skinny guy. So for me, I find it difficult to put on muscle.
Yeah.
The thing was always, if you want to be a hero, you have to have these big, bulging, rippling muscles. So I tried my best. I tried working out. I took all of the supplements, and still there's this thing of कमजोर लग रहे हो थोड़ा ऐसा थोड़ा कब कर सकते हो भाई फिल्म के पहले. Lots of that. The pressure came to a place. For a while, I started juicing. I started taking anabolic steroids, trying to bulk up and get that kind of heroic physique. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And all of these are actually image things. They're not real things. So you start to get caught up in it, and you give it weight,
Yeah.
and you make it real.
By
Or
validating it.
by
and
validating it.
Yeah.
So that was also a process for me of separating and saying, what things do I agree are real, and what things do I disagree, and say, nay, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
I don't agree, so I don't think it's real.
Was there also a reason why you did films like Once Upon a Time, in Mumbai Dobara, just to have an image changeover, and because those roles were more like projecting you or positioning you as that masculine image that most people have for heroes? Was it like a conscious choice because of that?
Well, it was also, I always tried to find a balance in the films that I was choosing, because my instinct was to lean towards kind of more urban films, because that is my aesthetic, that is my creative instinct. But also I would try to kind of balance it out and do a film that was a little, there's this classic thing that you always say in the business, one for me, one for you.
Yeah.
One for creative fulfillment, one for the audience.
Yeah.
So Once Upon a Time was a very hot project at that moment. our director Milan Luthria was coming off two super hit films, Once Upon a Time Part 1 and The Dirty Picture. So he was super hot. The project was super hot. Every young actor in town wanted that part.
Yeah, yeah.
All of my contemporaries were up for that part, and a lot of people wanted it.
And
So
you got it.
so at that moment, it was a very hot project, and it was a very celebrated project. Post release, when the film didn't do well, suddenly everyone turned around and said, "You shouldn't do films like this."
But that is what happens, right? Like,
You have a lot of very intelligent geniuses who can break down the film after release. After release, everyone can give you great analysis कि ऐसा ऐसा हुआ और क्यों हुआ. Somehow nobody knows this before release.
yeah, only if we knew what it would be like, you know. But also, I mean, you know, I just want to briefly, like, quickly touch on this because I remember you said that it took almost like 3 years for Jaane Tu to actually be from the time that it was conceptualized to its execution and release, right? It did take like 3 years. Yeah, 3 years is a long time, but that too, now we talk about this, and despite being the fact that you still had support from the industry, like your Amir sir is there in the industry, even then you had to go through that process. And not just that, you also mentioned that after Gori Tere Pyar Mein you lost out on 2 films consecutively, and people have this image where, and often it's also true, I mean, there's no denying that because you come from the industry or you have some sort of lineage or support, the next film is still, I mean, you will still get a film even after delivering a flop. But with you, I think that's really not been the case, especially given that you did lose out on films back to back only because one of your films out of one film out of 5 did not do well at that point.
Sure, but to be fair, there were others after that as well. I was choosing not to take them on. It's not like suddenly I had no offers
Right.
and no work on hand. The offers continued even through the years that I was basically invisible. I would still get 1 script a month, 2 scripts a month
Oh.
from somewhere, from someone would call. And for many years I was saying, listen, don't even send me your script. I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to.
Right.
So it's not like there were not offers and there was not some curiosity. I spent years shutting them down and saying, no thank you, no thank you, no thank you, don't send me a script, I won't read it, don't send me a script.
Yeah.
So I was also pushing back on that because I did not want to do work because I was not feeling like my heart was
Makes
in it.
sense, yeah.
I could have signed some films, I could have taken some paychecks and just turned out a couple of films. I couldn't put my heart into it.
I think in the Coffee with Karan episode, your now ex-wife, of course, Avantika, described you as someone who is very, like, she couldn't find anything wrong with you as a partner or just as a person. Like, I remember, and I was just laughing just how much of a simplistic person she described you to be, and which we could also see through, I mean, in all the interviews that you have done in the past and just as a person. How close are you to that image really?
In most ways, Jay in Jaane Tu is kind of closest. And there are parts of it which almost seem like foreshadowing as I look at it now. There's this running joke through the film that Jay doesn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
Which Abbas had written the script that way. But at the time that I first met him and he told me about the thing, I was the last guy in my group of friends to get a cell phone.
Nokia. I bet.
Because I didn't want one. So I was hearing that same line from some of my friends at that moment saying, dude, get a cell phone.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want one. And even today, I don't like my phone. I don't use WhatsApp. I don't use a lot of it. I keep the ringer off. I find the phone to be a very noisy, stressful thing. It keeps making noises and shouting and demanding my attention. And I'm always like,
Yeah.
so in a lot of ways, I think,
You're Jay.
yeah, Jay ended up being so close to me that it was kind of uncanny. And that then translates into, that is really kind of who I am and who I aspire to be. As cut and dry, as simple and as straightforward as you can as I can possibly be. That's how I've always tried to engage with the world.
Right. I also want to lead that into it only if you're comfortable. Uh, was it during that phase where you are also psychoanalyzing yourself and sort of trying to understand yourself and your worries a lot more during that time, for a lack of a better word? Is when you realize that, okay, maybe the relationship was also suffering, and that's when you decided to sort of take a step back, both of you, because this is not a decision taken in from one side, it's a mutually taken decision. But was it that time, or you can correct me if the timeline is wrong?
Yeah, without going too
Yeah,
much
I
into
mean-
that part, because I'm hesitant to add a lot of fuel to the gossip fire.
I'm sure, yeah.
But as I was dealing with all of this, this baggage and this stuff that was, all of my internal struggle, I did find that my marriage and my relationship were not helping any of that.
Right.
And that is kind of also in an ideal, in a healthy dynamic between two people, you are both making each other better, healthier, stronger,
Absolutely.
and supporting each other to be the healthiest, best, strongest version of self. And we were not in that place.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, whatever works eventually
Yeah.
for the betterment of both of you. But you're a very doting father, by the way. I think he's already said it in one of the interviews, but I'll reiterate that Monday to Wednesday is the only time when he engages with the outer world, because Thursday to Sunday is the time dedicated to his daughter, and I think that is wonderful. I mean, just to be that person who is being there. Not that it's something, I mean, every father does it, to be very honest, but just seeing you take that role so seriously, because eventually that is what it is. You could choose not to as well.
Yeah, I saw that as very, very important for me in my life. That as, and as a creative person, as an actor, as a writer, a filmmaker, whatever it is that you are doing as your craft, as your art, you can engage with that. But I felt that being a father was one of the most important things that I was going to do in my life, and so I wanted that experience for her and for myself,
Yeah.
of being there, doing the things of parenting.
But now is she, because you were away from the media for quite a long time, more so after she was born actually. So now when she's seeing literally all of your interviews and all of, at least snippets, I'm sure, because today's
I
kids
try-
are
I
much
try.
prone to like social media. How
No,
does she react?
So she's, I mean, she's younger, and I don't give her devices, so she's not going to be scrolling. She has an awareness from the outside world, because this is how these things are. It's
You can't escape it.
you
Let's
can't
just put
escape it, and it has this strange thing to it. She will be in school,
Yeah.
and some other child's nanny will be talking about her and say, "जानती हो वो इमरान खान की बेटी है." And then try and take pictures of her and all of this. It's really weird.
Yeah.
So she has started to become aware of this from the outside, where she would be, why are these people taking pictures of me? So the one thing that I was always conscious of is that I don't post her on social media. So while I'm a present and hands-on parent, I don't take pictures and I don't take videos of that. Like here I am with my
Right.
child doing. So that parenting happens off camera, behind the scenes. I keep that for myself. That's our time. It is not
For everyone
For-
to see.
for
sure.
sharing.
Yeah.
so I don't post her on social media.
But like you said, that people come to her, ask photos. Like, have you made her aware that you are a star kid eventually? I mean, just to
So,
put it.
yeah, so she has that awareness, and I've explained it to her that in that way, that these people want to take your photograph because your father was
an
acted
actor,
in
yeah.
movies and they know me. And she has quite a balanced view of it, so she's like, that's weird.
Because Papa, I've not seen you in any movie ever since I have.
Yeah, I also have not shown her any of.
Which is that first film you'll show her once you think that she can watch a film?
I would probably start with Jaane Tu, because it has this niceness, this gentleness to it,
Yeah.
which I really value.
Also, I mean, like you said, I think the image that she must have of you as a father is also very close to Jay.
Yeah, I guess she would also find that relatable.
Yeah, I think so too, just as an audience, you know. But also, recently, I think Lekha made it insta-official. I don't know if you know, there's a term called insta-official, wherein everyone waits for that one photo to come out where it's official that these two people are dating. So, correct me if I'm wrong again, but I think Lekha did make it insta-official
So
because I read headlines.
I read headlines. I was weirded out because there were pictures of us from Ira's wedding also
Yeah.
that had come out, which I thought were
Kind of official.
more direct and better. Like you could see our faces. Then last week she posted like this silhouette picture, and everyone said this is the one. I said, but what about the one with our where you can see our faces? That didn't count. So I was surprised that the headlines came from this and not from that.
Because I'm telling you, there's this term wherein we call it insta-official. So unless you're official on Instagram, you're not official, really.
Yeah, I guess. So yeah,
I mean,
I don't know how these things work. So genuinely, I don't know why they picked up the silhouette picture from now instead of the picture with both of our
Yeah.
faces visible from like
the
2-3 months ago.
Iris wedding. That's true. That's true. Now even I'm questioning that. Actually, that was a more
Yeah.
subtle way of like
That
sort of.
you can see
yeah.
the faces. It's a silhouette. You're like, I can decipher who this is. Like,
But that is what it is. Like Instagram is today the place where people also assume, and they kind of speculations are raised basis Instagram post, cryptic post that one. You know, right? That's a thing.
I
Where to-
recently learned this
yeah.
term. It is called vague booking. Do you know what vague booking?
No, what's that? Wow.
It's like taken off from Facebooking. Vague booking is when you make indirect passive aggressive posts on social media. You know, there are some people out there who claim to be like this, but actually they are not that way. And I'm not saying any who it is, but I just want them to know that I'm not falling for this thing.
Wow.
You know this thing I'm talking about.
I know.
It's called
A lot
vague.
of people do that.
It's called
oh,
vague.
It's called vague booking.
Vague booking.
Ah, nice.
So you post on social media and as
Wow. So I learned a new word from you today, vague booking, and you learned from me, insta-official.
insta-official.
So we'll wait for you also to put something which will make it insta-official, maybe.
Oh yeah.
है ना आपने नहीं डाला अभी तक.
Yeah. I still don't view that Instagram, I guess, as something to do with me personally.
But you know, just to end this conversation, I want to know, because I mean, of course, we all are interested in knowing everything that you have not shown us in the last 10 years, because the curiosity is more about that, right? That's why the nostalgia post that you wrote resonated so much, because people were just like, oh my god, we did not know all these stories. These photos speak much more than, you know, everything else.
Yeah, old photos are such good fun.
It worked, and especially, you know, when I see your I mean, just to take two more questions, because that post just reminded me of Delhi
Please.
Belly's post, and I remember back then in the post also you have written that the second thought was that this film might not even release, which was quite a possibility. I don't know how the censors back then really passed it,
So-
especially with a song like Bhagni Ke Boz. It was an
So,
anthem.
I believe that they had to change some of the censor board guidelines after that film to ensure that no such film would ever release again.
So this is the film because of which the censor board really changed.
Yeah. And the journey of Delhi Belly, Jaane Tu ko 3 saal lage. Delhi Belly, from the time that I first screen tested for the film to release, was a 5-year journey.
Wow, the longest, I believe.
Yeah. So both of these films had a long journey from script to being picked up to finally coming
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
It took a lot of work to get those two
Do you
films
feel
out.
it's one of your most underrated work? Because Kiran
Underrated nahi.
Kiran actually recently spoke about it, and she said that if Delhi Belly had to release in today's time, it would have done so much more than what it did back then.
Well, also the box office environment is different today. The numbers are just higher today. At that point, you know, even a film doing 100 crores was a novel thing. That you
Yeah.
know, I think AK's film Gajni was the first, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
Correct me
yeah.
in the comments if I'm wrong. But that market was different.
it Gajni or Dangal?
Dangal came much later.
Okay.
Gajni is 2008.
But it has to be an Amir Khan film only because he only started that trend for
Yeah,
sure.
so yeah, there is that. For what it was, I thought Delhi Belly did quite well at that time. It again, it did better than we thought it would.
Yeah, that's so true, to be very honest, because when I listen to that song, even today, it's such a vibe again.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, but आज के टाइम पे अगर ये गाना आता तो I cannot even imagine the cuts. वो तो सिर्फ ना
Yeah.
फिर भाग और बोस ही रहता है, ठीक है तो हटा ही देते मेरे हिसाब
See, like everyone says couldn't make this film today. We couldn't make it then either. Nobody would make it. The script of Delhi Belly at that moment did the rounds of every major studio in Bombay City, and everyone rejected it. Nobody would pick it up. Amir Khan Productions was the absolute last stop. Akshat Verma, who wrote the script, he had been rejected by every producer, every studio in the city. And the last door he showed up at was Amir Khan Productions. He couldn't get a meeting and he handed the script over at reception. And he left and he went back home. He lived in the States. So he got on a plane and he left and said, "Bas, done."
now अब जो होगा देख लेंगे.
Yeah. And the journey of that film, as it happens, is that Kiran arrived at the office to pick up AK and take him somewhere. He was in a meeting, so she sat down outside, and there's a pile of scripts. So she picked one up, read 2 pages, put it down. Picked one up, read 2 pages, put it down. Picked
Wow.
one up, read 2 pages, then read a 3rd page, and then a 4th page. And by the time he came out, she said, "Listen, cancel everything. You have to read the script now."
Wow.
That's how it happened. He read the script and said, "Oh my God, this is great.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? Call him." As it happens, this guy had just landed in California.
And then come back.
So he said, "Come back right now."
This is such an interesting story because even Jaane Tu, Jaane Na, I heard it was kind of a similar story where the last stop almost was AK Productions, and that
Yeah.
is where it came. So it's
Yeah.
all destined.
And Jaane Tu was in pre-production at that moment.
If there's a sequel, which every now and then keeps popping up, that there should be a sequel to Jaane Tu Ya Jaane Na. What are Rat and Meow up to now? Rats and Meow up to now. Do you think it is a possibility, or if there's a chance for a remake, would you be okay with a remake of that film?
I am always skeptical of remaking a film because it's not just the story that makes a film work, you know. There are so many other intangibles that come together. The casting of it, the music of it, the cinematography, the all of these things are intangibles that come together and make a thing work. So really, the notion of remaking a film, particularly a successful film, to me, I've always thought that's not a great idea, and you should try something new. रही sequel की बात, here again, if you'll pardon me approaching it from a cinematic perspective, when in Jaane Tu, it is the kind of film where the character's emotional journey
Yeah.
is the culmination of the plot.
True.
And so because of that, to have a sequel, you have to then reopen their emotionality, which may or may not work. Sequels generally are for plot-driven films, not character-driven films.
Makes sense.
You know, in like an action franchise, Spider-Man or, you know,
Makes sense,
one of
yeah.
those, Spider-Man has to stop the bad guy at the end of the film.
Yeah,
Bad
so
guy
you
क्या
can
करे?
actually.
So
yeah.
one bad guy, एक और bad guy. So because it is plot driven, you can always make another. One where your entire journey is a character journey and the journey of these characters finding love, finding who they are, and finally ending up here.
Yeah.
That is the only way then to readdress that is you have to poke that, open it up, make a.
Yeah.
I don't know if it works.
Yeah, actually, now that you're saying it like that, it makes sense. So, what next for you now with all of this new avenues that have opened up, OTT being one of the major competitors where you can really do what you want to, the vision that you have?
Yeah, you know, just from a creative perspective, the way the market, the industry has opened up to all kinds of stories, all kinds of storytellers, it's such a breath of fresh air. While I was working, from mid 2000s onwards, it was a very stifling environment, and there were these very rigid guidelines put in place by which authority I don't know, but के ऐसा ही होना चाहिए. If you are working as a mainstream Bollywood hero, you can't do a different thing. It's like, what if I act in a short film? Arey, your career is finished. So ho gaya.
Yeah.
What if I feel like making an offbeat film that is, in English? कर ही नहीं सकते. Art film तो मत बनाओ.
Yeah.
So all of these strange constraints and restrictions which were put in place, which are stifling for a creative person. I don't subscribe to that anymore, and now the idea that, listen, you can make any kind of creative content if it is touching your heart, and if you are able to express yourself creatively, really that's the only thing that matters. So if it is a short film, a medium film, it's a series, it's a documentary,
Doesn't matter.
it is creative expression.
Yeah.
That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and there's an audience for everything at this point. Are we going to hear from you that you have finally signed something? Because when I even mentioned that you're coming, and everyone is like, oh, is Imran finally coming for a movie? So I know there's excitement for people to hear what is on your bucket list next. So how long or how soon are we going to hear from you on that end?
I don't have a clear answer on that.
This year, perhaps?
I'm hoping, and it's not for lack of trying. I'm having these conversations with writers, directors, producers, trying to find something that really sparks. So there is, I guess, at this point there are 2 stories that I've read that kind of resonated with me, which I'm developing with the directors, but they're not close to a full project yet. So I don't have a proper film that I've signed, or a show that I've signed that I'm actually committed to yet.
But there are 2 things that we can look forward to, which is in a developing stage.
Two things that I have liked that we're developing, but nothing concrete. Since I'm here for the record, let me clear up.
I was going to just ask you about the rumors, right? Like,
you're going to ask about Happy Patel.
I mean, but you did clear it up, and you said that
I did clear it.
Yeah.
The way these things work is that the clarification is not as tasty, so no one carries it. The rumor is very tasty, so that goes wide. The next day I clarified and said, guys, aisa nahi hai.
I remember that there was a clarity where you have actually gone on record and said that you have not signed anything, and there's not even like something about a mention or something was there, and I was just like, okay, he's not doing it.
Yeah.
But
so that's how these things work, and I felt very guilty because everywhere it was reported that I'm starring in Happy Patel. I was like, Veer is the star of the film. He's written the film, he's co-directing with his friend Kavi Shastri. And Veer is starring in and as Happy Patel.
Yeah.
So finally he gets to have one of those posters, Veer Das in and as Happy Patel.
Yeah.
So
But
I was
it
like,
takes away from that.
yeah, so I was like, dude, like I don't want to come in and snatch headlines and all, like it's his film.
No, but I think there's just, like I said, there's an excitement to see you on screen. So any small, like for example, if you hear that, oh, this is in development, the headline would go that Imran is coming back in this film.
Yeah.
Unfortunate as it is.
It is unfortunate, but now I'm also approaching it with a very kind of slow, non-hurried pace where I'm not bound to a schedule or timeline or anything like this. It is from a place of creative fulfillment.
Yes, and I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you so much, Imran.